In a world of family feuds, her dad's posthumous mic drop proved that even from beyond the grave, he was the real MVP. While her sister was busy deflating tires, Dad's legacy inflated her integrity. Her sister got pregnant with her ex, and the family supported her and threatened her to give up her share of the inheritance. Her sister got knocked up by her loser ex. That's the truth, and it couldn't have been said any better. Her ex, a 26-year-old man, and she, a 24-year-old young girl, had dated for 2 years. After that, she introduced him to her family, her parents, 19-year-old sister, and 15-year-old younger brother. 5 months later, she discovered he was cheating on her and had knocked up her sister. She was shattered. It was like a bunch of arrows thrown at her from all directions. She had been cheated on, and that man was going to marry her sister. She was going to bump into him for the rest of her life. For context, her ex and she had been in the same college. He was a senior when they started going out, while she was a freshman. He had dropped out earlier to help his dad set up his business, but rejoined when things got better. After 2 years of dating and 4 years of knowing each other, she took him home. It was all happy and fun. They spent the night in her hometown. They went out to a local bar with her siblings. She hadn't noticed anything wrong between her sister and her ex. That was 2 years ago. Her sister was 17 then. They came back the next day and everything remained normal. Her ex and she weren't living together. He was living with his brother, while she lived with her college friend. That was better than living with her ex because his work involved travel. He also used to travel to his hometown often to oversee his dad's business. She told her parents about the betrayal and they freaked out. Her mom slapped Rosie hard on her face. Rosie had always been a troublemaker. She dropped out of school at 14, ran away from home twice at 15, and now got knocked up by her sister's boyfriend at 17. She hadn't told their parents yet, but when they found out, they immediately took her for a scan. It turned out she was 7 weeks pregnant. She confessed that her ex used to travel 2 or 3 times a month to meet her, and they used to spend the night at a hotel. The cheating broke her soul. First, she was cheated on by 2 very important people in her life. Second, she was in a serious relationship with her ex. She had never had a boyfriend before. She was quite a studious, boring girl. While her academics benefited her in many ways, like a full ride at university, it deprived her of a social life. While she was still processing her heartbreak, her mom told her they were planning a wedding for her sister and her ex. This was another blow to her. She yelled at her mom, saying that she was still supporting her. Her mom said, "No matter what, we're not going to abandon her in this condition, and we'll be doing everything to cover up her mess." She rolled her eyes and asked her mom to leave her alone. Her mom said, "I know it hurts you, sweetie, but do we have any other option? We can't get rid of the baby. It's a sin. We can't let the baby grow up as a bastard, can we? We have to get them married. I've spoken to his parents, and they're flying down this weekend. She's yet to show, so we can have it in the church instead of a hush-hush city hall wedding." She stood up and started packing her stuff to leave. She couldn't just stand there and take all the BS they were putting up. Her mom stopped her and said, "You can't leave. It's your only sister's wedding." She was furious. How could her mom even ask her to attend that wedding? The person who slept with her boyfriend. Her mom said, "That was in the past. In the present situation, she's your sister and you have to attend her wedding because we don't want to answer people who question your absence." She was like, "Really, Mom? Your teenage daughter got knocked up by her elder sister's boyfriend, and you're worried that people are going to question my absence at her wedding. You need to align your priorities." Her mom said she didn't understand these complexities. In her eyes, her ex was now her sister's would-be husband, the father of her child, and her brother-in-law. What is the F? It made her sick to the guts. She said, "I'm not going to give in to her pressure, and I'm leaving." Her mom called up her dad and asked him to rush home and knock some sense into her. She was about to leave before her dad arrived. She said, "If I leave, you're going to abandon me, and I should never show my face to them, even if they die." She said, "Sure. If you're going to support your low-life daughter over me, then I'm cutting you all off from my life too, and you should never contact me either." On the wedding day, a lot of friends and family called and texted her, asking why she didn't show up at her sister's wedding. She didn't answer any of the calls. One of her cousins, who was close to her, told her that her parents, especially her mom, told everyone that she didn't attend the wedding because she was jealous that her younger sister was getting married while she was still single. Her blood boiled on hearing this. It was quite unusual for her. She went to Facebook and wrote a detailed post describing how her sister got knocked up by her boyfriend and how her parents were getting them married to cover everything up. She attached her pictures with her ex in the post to prove her point. Her phone blew up after that. Her parents sent her threatening messages to take down the post. She took it down, but after a week they said she brought shame to their house. To cover one lie, they said another lie, that she made a false allegation out of jealousy because her ex found her sister more attractive and fell in love with her. Could you imagine the level of toxicity? She swore to never see their effing face again in life. That was 2 years ago, and since then she's been no contact with them. She's in touch with her brother, though. He contacted her after that and said sorry for not standing up for her. She told him it was fine. He was 13 then. He told her that her parents had put on a fancy wedding for her sister from their savings. They had even helped them settle down in the adjacent block. Her mom babysits for her son while she roams about with her friends. Yesterday, her brother called her out of the blue. She was in a meeting, but she rushed out to take it. They talk over chats and hardly on calls, so this had to be urgent. He told her that her dad had passed away. She was distraught. She hung up the call and took the first flight to her hometown. She came here, but she didn't know where to go. Her mom had asked everyone not to inform her because she didn't deserve to attend his last rites. She was still holding up the grudge against her. She checked into a hotel because she could not go home to her cruel mother. Her brother told her that the funeral date was yet to be decided, but it was mostly tomorrow or the day after. She hadn't told anyone that she was there. She didn't know if she should visit her house or not. I mean, her family was still bitter about her, given her situation. What do you guys suggest? Nothing says family values like sweeping scandal under the rug faster than a cheetah on Red Bull. And then there's your mom, playing the part of the drama queen, casting you as the villain in her little soap opera fantasy. I mean, seriously, accusing you of jealousy. It's like blaming a firefighter for starting the fire. But hey, kudos to you for dropping that truth bomb on Facebook. Sometimes you've got to fight toxic with toxic. And right, as for your parents' threats, well, it sounds like they're more worried about their precious reputation than actually facing the truth. Now, about your dad passing away, that's a tough one. On one hand, you probably want to pay your respects and say your final goodbyes. On the other hand, walking back into that viper's nest of a household might not be the healthiest move for your sanity. But hey, you've got your brother on your side, and that's something. Maybe you two can stick together and weather the storm, one dysfunctional family moment at a time. As for visiting your house, well, let's just say if you do, bring a hazmat suit for all the toxic vibes floating around. But hey, you do you. Just remember, sometimes the best revenge is living well, far away from all that craziness. Update 1. Thanks for all the support. She felt so relieved to talk to you guys on DM. Some of you commented that she was scared that her family would gang up against her, and that's why she wasn't going. You guys were right. She was apprehensive that they would knock her out. She couldn't fight them if they ganged up. And obviously, she didn't want to put up a fight in front of her father's dead body. Somehow, she gained the courage and told her brother that she was in town. He insisted that she attend the funeral and that he would be there for her if something of that sort happened. She said thanks for the protection, but she thought she could manage. She didn't do anything wrong that she needed to hide, so she showed up at the funeral. Her brother was waiting for her. They hugged each other and cried. Her mother and sister gave her looks. Her sister yelled at her brother. "Why did you call her?" He yelled back. "He was all of us. Dad and I had the right to attend the funeral." Their point was that if she had sworn to cut them off from her life, then she shouldn't be allowed to attend his funeral. Her sister almost chased her out, but her uncle and her brother stood up for her. She saw her ex standing in the corner, holding his son and watching the drama. Her dad might not have been the best person out there, yet he was her dad, and watching him lifeless was the most emotional moment of her life. She broke down, but no one except her brother was there to console her. She was about to leave after the funeral when her dad's lawyer told her to visit his office the next day for the will reading. She said she wasn't interested, given her past relationship with her family. She wasn't hoping for any good from his will. He said her dad left her a letter which got her curious, and she decided to stay. The next day, she showed up at the attorney's office with her brother. Her mother came charging at her, asking why she was there and asking her to leave. They called her names and said she was just there for her dad's money. She said she didn't need the money. Her dad had left her a letter. She was there to collect it. They could keep the money. Her mom said she knew what was in that letter. He wanted to tell you that he was disowning you. He hated you for shaming the family publicly. She cursed herself for showing up just to get humiliated. Thankfully, the attorney came and relieved her of their taunts. He started reading the will, which her dad had modified last year. The house in which they lived was always in her mom's name, so she got to keep it. His savings and insurance money went to her mom for her survival and the retirement house. Besides that, he had invested in a trust fund and divided it between the three of them. He also mentioned the reason behind the division. Her sister's son got 10%, and her sister got 20% because he funded her wedding and paid for their house lease. Her brother got 30% for his university. The remaining 40% came to her. That was a shocker for everyone, including her. The reason he mentioned was that he didn't fund her education. She got a complete scholarship from the university. After she got the job, she helped him pay the house mortgage for over 2 years. Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more. Now let's dive back into the story. Her sister flipped out that she got double her share, though her father mentioned the reasons very clearly. She said it was unfair. She repeatedly asked the lawyer if it was the updated one because her dad wanted to disown her. The lawyer said that her dad had left a letter for her, which he wanted him to read in front of everyone. The letter read, "Dad was proud of you that you were able to make such a good career for yourself, and that he never had to worry about you. He said he was sorry for not standing up for you and giving in to Mom's pressure and manipulation. He mentioned a few other moments of your childhood and growing up that he cherished. He asked you to take care of your brother. He said he wished to post this letter himself, but he didn't know your address. He hopes to talk to you before you get to read this letter, and he tells you everything in person." She had read that letter at least 100 times after that day, and it still made her tear up as she wrote this. Her sister and ex left the room midway when the letter was read. Her mom remained there and cried. She cried like a toddler, hugging her baby brother. She had the return flight in the evening, but her brother insisted she stay, so she had been there for a week now, meeting her brother over brunch and dinner. They just talked and caught up about life and random things. He was finishing high school this year and planning on moving out for grad school. Honestly, she was worried about him. After she was gone, her mother and sister might target him for supporting her. But he said he was grown up to handle any crap they threw. She was going back tomorrow. She would update if anything developed. Else, this was the end. Looks like Daddy Dearest had a few secrets up his sleeve, huh? First off, props to you for braving the lion's den and showing up at the funeral. Sounds like your sister was ready to throw you to the wolves faster than you can say inheritance drama. And speaking of drama, that will read was like something straight out of a movie. Your sister and ex storming out like they just realized they left the oven on. Classic. But hey, looks like your daddy had your back in the end. That letter. Pure gold. It's like he dropped a truth bomb from beyond the grave, setting the record straight and giving you a little piece of closure in the process. And your brother sounds like he's got a backbone of steel, moving out for grad school and standing up to mommy and sis. That's some next-level sibling solidarity right there. Update 2. It's not over yet. Looks like her sister and ex got no chills, so she came back from her hometown after a week and found a notice in her mailbox. Her sister had challenged her dad's will in court, saying that there was a typing mistake by his lawyer. They were claiming that her dad had given her 50% of his assets, but the lawyer had made the mistake. She contacted her dad's lawyer and sent him the notice. He said they couldn't do anything about it because her dad had signed the will in his senses in front of the attorney and witnesses. Apart from that, her dad had mentioned the reason behind the division, so it was a no-brainer. He said that the judge was going to dismiss the case as soon as he read the will. That's what happened. The asset was divided as per the will. The case was closed. She thought they were done here, but no. Emotional manipulation was on the way. Her mom called her. She was crying over her dad's death. She said sorry for cutting her out of her life. After she was done shredding her tears, she asked her how she was doing at work and what was new in life. She said work was fine and so was life. Regular. She asked if she got the promotion since she had been working for so many years now. She got curious and asked why she wanted to know this. She said she was equally proud of her as her dad, that she was excelling in her career and doing so well for herself. She said, and... Her mom muttered, well, you know your sister couldn't complete school and got pregnant at a young age. She couldn't have a career like you, and she's pregnant again. They're surviving on just one source of income, so I was thinking, why don't you be a bigger person and give your share of the asset to her? Well, you can't deny that your dad was being unfair and giving her only 20% while you get double. She stopped her right there. First of all, it's not that she couldn't complete school. It's rather she didn't complete school and dropped out. And you still consider that Dad was unfair when Dad mentioned the reason for his asset division. I paid the mortgage for 2 years at the house in which you are living. It's not my problem that my sister is surviving on one income. She made that choice. She should have thought about her husband's income before skipping protection for the second child. And yeah, how could we forget about getting knocked up for the first one? Her mom lost her mind at this. She was mad that how could she even say these words in front of her? She was like, I just said your princess did all of this. Why did you lose your mind at her? But I see you're still coddling her like an infant. Her mom called her mean and jealous of her sister. She was having a family while she was still single, and that's why she was trying to hurt her financially because she couldn't beat her in any other aspect. She said, sure, whatever you think. I'm done reasoning with you folks. Guess you don't have enough brain to understand my point. Probably that's why you get better with your 6th grader loser daughter. She hung up the phone, saying she was spitting poison and that she was still that vindictive witch that she was 2 years ago. Do you guys think she should give up her inheritance just because her sister is mindlessly expanding her family without financial planning? Looks like the circus tent's still standing, and the clowns are still juggling their drama balls. First off, kudos for holding your ground against the emotional manipulation brigade. Your sister dropping out of school and popping out babies like a Pez dispenser doesn't exactly qualify as a resume for the Fortune 500, does it? And mom's little guilt trip, classic. Why don't you be the bigger person and hand over your share? Yeah, because nothing screams fairness like rewarding irresponsible life choices with a big fat inheritance check, right? But hey, let's not forget the real gem here. Jealous of your sister because she's married and you're single. That's like saying you're jealous of someone because they got food poisoning and you didn't. Talk about a messed up comparison. So, should you give up your inheritance? Heck no. You earned that fair and square. Your sister's financial misadventure shouldn't be your burden to bear. Stick to your guns, keep that inheritance, and let the circus continue without you. Update 3. Here's a new update. Almost a month after the last phone call with her mom one morning, she was leaving for work when she saw her car tires were being slashed. She thought her neighbor's child pulled this prank, so she hailed a taxi and went to work. Meanwhile, she called the car service company to get the tires fixed. They fixed it and sent her the pictures. However, when she came back in the evening, she saw the tires were slashed again and her car was painted piggy. She saw the other cars parked nearby, and all of them looked fine. It couldn't be a coincidence that the children were targeting her car unless she did something wrong with them. She didn't remember having any encounters with any children in the neighborhood. She went upstairs to find a note in her mailbox. Give me my share or else I'm going to make you suffer every day. She immediately called her lawyer and told him about the incident. He asked her to change the locks of her house, install a camera outside her apartment, and check the footage of the camera installed in the basement. She informed the chairman of the apartment and asked him for the camera footage. She reviewed it. She saw a woman wearing a long, oversized coat and a big hat entering the basement in the early hours of the morning. Unfortunately, nothing else got captured because the camera angle didn't cover the area where her car was parked. The same woman again entered the basement in the late afternoon, but there was a man with her, with his face fully covered. She knew it was her sister and her ex since she didn't have any concrete evidence against them. She couldn't report them. 2 days later, she came home to find someone had broken into her house through the window. It had to be her loser ex, because her pregnant sister couldn't climb on someone's window to break open hers. Nothing was stolen, but he brought down the house to ruins. The curtains were pulled down, the pillows were torn open, her clothes were cut down like confetti, and the china sets were broken into dust. She couldn't explain how terrible she felt. It wasn't about the money. Her house was insured, but you understand the hatred they had for her. This called for a police complaint. The cops came and made a note of everything. They asked if she doubted anyone. She told them about the car incident, the note in the mailbox, and her history with her sister regarding her inheritance. The odds worked slightly in her sister's favor because she was pregnant. It took a lot of effort and evidence to prove it was her, because the camera didn't capture her face. Based on the circumstantial evidence, like the note regarding the asset share and her presence in the town when this happened, their previous charges case of challenging her dad's will, everything put together built a case against her. However, the cops let her go with paying the fine and threatened her not to bother her again. She confessed that she was the one who did everything and not her husband. She did it because she was envious of her regarding her dad's unequal division of assets. And besides all that, she was hormonal, so she couldn't control her rage. She had to assure the cops in writing that she would never bother her again. She accepted it because she was tired of all this. She didn't have just this one thing in life. She had a career. She had a life. But she threatened that if this was repeated, she was going to go nuclear on her. Her brother told her that he heard her mom talking to her sister and telling her that she was smart and taking everything on herself because her husband would have incurred a heftier fine and maybe some prison time. Who knows? She couldn't believe they would do this to her. It hurt to think that she never did anything wrong to them, yet she was getting this kind of treatment. It made her wonder if there was any karma. If yes, then how do these kinds of people can escape that? Yikes. Nothing says justice served like a stern warning and a gentle tap on the wrist. As for karma, well, who knows? Maybe it's just taking a smoke break, sipping a cocktail on a beach somewhere, waiting for the right moment to come crashing down like a cosmic wrecking ball. In the meantime, keep your locks changed, your camera rolling, and your sense of humor intact. After all, when life hands you slashed tires and broken windows, sometimes all you can do is laugh, preferably while sipping a stiff drink and watching from a safe distance. What would you do? Give her some of your best advice in the comments below, and thank you for joining us today. Also, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon. Let's conclude the story shortly. In the end, she chose to move on, to build a life for herself, free from the toxicity of her family. She learned to prioritize her happiness and well-being, refusing to be dragged down by their drama. She found solace in her brother's support and the strength to stand up for herself. The inheritance, while a surprise, became a symbol of her father's silent approval of her choices. It was a reminder that she was worthy, even in the face of her family's disapproval. Her sister's actions, fueled by jealousy and a sense of entitlement, only solidified her decision to cut ties. The legal battle over the inheritance, while stressful, ultimately served as a final act of closure. It was a clear demonstration of how her family's values differed from her own. The story ends with her moving forward, stronger and wiser. She learned that family isn't always about blood, but about the people who choose to support and uplift you. She discovered the power of standing up for herself, choosing her path, and finding peace amidst the chaos. She may have lost her family, but she found herself, and that was a victory worth celebrating. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.